84% of Gen Z believes mental health is a full-blown crisis in America. Not an issue, a crisis. And here's the number that should actually stop you. They are over 80% more likely to report anxiety or depression than older generations. This isn't a vibe. This isn't a stereotype about a soft generation that older relatives like to repeat at family dinners. This is the most heavily studied, most data-tracked generation in human history, tracked by Gallup, Deloitte, and federal agencies like SAMHSA. Across dozens of independent surveys, the data keeps saying the same thing. Something unprecedented is happening to young people's mental health right now. The numbers have become too large, too consistent, and too well documented to dismiss as exaggeration or generational noise. A 2024 Gallup study found that Gen Z reports the poorest mental health of any generation on record. Not among the worst. The worst. Anxiety is the most common condition, and over 60% of those cases are medically diagnosed, not self-reported, diagnosed by an actual clinician. Gallup's 2025 data shows the percentage of Gen Z adults reporting excellent mental health has dropped by 14 full points since 2019. SAMHSA found that 33.7% of young adults had a diagnosable mental illness. Over 20% had serious thoughts of suicide. 75% of all lifetime mental health conditions emerge before age 24. This generation is being hit at the most critical developmental window. Deloitte's global survey found 40% of Gen Z feel stressed or anxious all or most of the time. Compare that to millennials at 34%. Only 23% of Gen Z said excellent mental health. Only 45% feel like they're thriving, the lowest score recorded for any generation. 79% of Gen Z report feeling lonely sometimes or always, in a generation that is more digitally connected than any in history. What's driving this? Financial future. Deloitte found long-term financial anxiety is the single most cited stressor, more than work or relationships. They are watching housing costs, inflation, and student debt collide as they try to start adult life. They inherited these conditions. 86% reported burnout at work. More than a third say they would quit a job because of toxic workplace cultures. Now add screen time. Gen Z spends between 5 and 6.5 hours per day on their phones. 76% admit they spend too much time on smartphones, and 78% say they've felt genuinely addicted to social media. Depression risk increases by 13% for every additional hour of social media use. The compounding math is significant and measurable, and there's a newer pressure nobody saw coming even 3 years ago. AI anxiety hitting the job market specifically for young people. Recent college graduates are facing a brutal entry-level job market because companies use AI to automate tasks junior employees used to do: data work, writing, research, and basic analysis. Grads made up just 7% of new hires in 2024, down from 11% just 2 years earlier. One graduate sent out 150 applications and had offers rescinded specifically because AI tools were doing the work more efficiently than a new hire. This is a generation watching the traditional entry point to their entire career get automated out from under them in real time. On top of all of this, there's a layer that's harder to quantify, but shows up consistently in surveys: global and political anxiety. This generation grew up with 24-hour news, climate change coverage, and global conflict arriving directly to their phone with no precedent for processing it. There is a massive gap between how many people are struggling and how many are actually getting help. Over half do not receive treatment. Nearly half of U.S. Gen Z workers say stigma specifically is what keeps them from pursuing mental health care, even when they want it. Globally, Gen Z women report higher rates of persistent depression, with 40% saying they've experienced prolonged periods of sadness multiple times. The pandemic disruption hit this specific generation at the exact wrong developmental moment. They were 8 to 25 years old when the world shut down. High schoolers missed proms and graduations. College students missed the campus experience. Those entering the workforce did so remotely without in-person mentors. This disruption is a structural wound, shifting an entire generation's baseline relationship with uncertainty, social interaction, and institutional trust. They came out of isolation directly into an AI-disrupted job market and a housing crisis. There was no recovery period. But Gen Z isn't just the most anxious generation, they're also the most open about it, and increasingly, the most proactive. Therapy usage is up 22%. 77% are doing some form of self-help, books, journaling, podcasts, and structured routines. 55% of Gen Z worldwide feel they actually have the right coping skills to manage their mental health and wellness. Even in high-stress environments, 63% report feeling hopeful about their personal future, despite everything else in the data. This generation didn't just inherit a mental health crisis shaped by an economy they didn't build, a pandemic they didn't choose, and a technology landscape no previous generation had to navigate at this scale. They're the first generation in history actively, openly fighting back against it. In therapy offices and support groups, and yes, even on TikTok and YouTube, which the JED Foundation found are now primary platforms Gen Z turns to for mental health information. Every generation thinks the one before it had it easier, so it's worth addressing directly. Is this just normal generational complaining? The data suggests it's genuinely different. Gen Z is the first generation whose entire adolescence was shaped by smartphones and social media from the start. Comparison culture and social media feedback loops were present during the exact brain development window researchers say is most vulnerable to that kind of input. One report found 42% report feeling overwhelmed daily. Yet, Gen Z's resilience scores measured 15% higher than millennials on certain coping metrics. It's a generation facing more simultaneous pressure than any before it, while still managing to develop coping tools at a higher rate. Academic stress has spiked too. More than half of Gen Z high schoolers report exhaustion specifically from compounded academic pressure. UNICEF's 2025 global research found that roughly 40% of Gen Z worldwide report needing help with their mental health right now. Ipsos's polling found that 54% of Gen Z worldwide say stress has prevented them from actually functioning, going to work, or attending class. Gallup research found only 40% of parents talk openly with their children about mental health, suggesting a significant generational conversation gap. This isn't a generation being soft. It's a generation that absorbed a global pandemic, entered a broken economy, and watched AI reshape the market. They are the first generation naming the problem out loud, going to therapy in record numbers, and refusing to treat mental health as a secret. 58% of young adults are now setting formal mental health goals. 54% report good mental health days most of the time now. If you're part of Gen Z watching this, what's driving it for you? Drop it in the comments. The data only tells part of the story. Talking to someone is a real first step. The 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is available 24/7 if you need to talk right now.